Well, welcome everybody to the Women in Agriculture Conference. It's really a pleasure to have everybody here. Unfortunately, our moderator has had some problems, some technical problems, but I think we're all here. And I also have the questions in front of me. So let us start today. I want to take the opportunity, first of all, to thank Ndidi and Wezo and the whole Sahel team for inviting us for this wonderful event and celebration. I think it's really a delight and a pleasure for us to be here, and the morning sessions have just been excellent. So I know this session is going to be great. And so let me first of all ask Betty if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, so thank you so much for the invitation, and to the Health team, congratulations on their 10th anniversary. My name is Betty, director at the Rockefeller Foundation, and I manage our investments in Africa, specifically around food and our emerging work around energy. Thank you so much, and I look forward to an exciting session.
Okay, excellent. I'll introduce myself as well. My name is Carla Dominique Denzard. I am the regional leader for World Vision International for West Africa, and I am based in Dakar. However, I'm currently in Accra, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm also a food security specialist and have, committed most of my life working on agricultural issues, especially with the gender focus. So Vicki?
Yeah. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, evening to everyone. I'm Vicki Wild. I'm in Seattle, Washington. I sit on the agriculture team of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I'm the senior program officer responsible for our portfolio of investments in women's empowerment.
Excellent. Thanks, Vicki, for joining us today. And then we have Elor Mercy. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello. Yeah, thank you very much. And hello, everyone. I think it's good day to everyone. I think that covers everyone. So my name is Elor Mercy Diebirojo. I am based in Ibadan, Nigeria. I work at IITA as a cassava seed system specialist, and also I work with the commercial arm of IITA called the IITA Go Seed. Is under the IITA Business Incubation Platform. So in that unit, I lead the vegetative seed propagated crops. I commercialize the early generation seed and ensure that the seed system is working well, and we are doing things in accordance to the seed laws in the country, and ensure that distribution and sales and commercialization of new varieties of these vegetative crops are easily passed down to the farmers. So, and this and a lot of others that I do at ITA. Thank you. I'm looking forward to this exciting session and program.
Yeah, thank you, Elor. Quite impressive work that you're doing out of Nigeria. So without further ado, let's just start with our a couple questions. Betty, as you know, women face many obstacles and barriers when trying to fully participate in the agriculture and food landscape on the continent. What can we do to change this, to really get down to zero hunger?
All right, so thank you so much. And women participate in every level of the food value chain, from production to the market. But in this conversation, I'd like to focus more on the barriers that limit women who are in the last mile of our food system, and these are the female vendors. And just in a most recent visit where I was doing some research around human-centered design, I met this female vendor by the name Jane. Jane is a mother of 4. She's a fruit and vegetable vendor in Nairobi, and she has been doing this business for about 10 years. And Jane buys a lot of her produce from the intermediaries and breaks the bulk to her customers. And so when I talked to Jane and asked her, what are your pain points in your business? Jane highlighted to me a couple of challenges, including high levels of post-harvest losses at the market, which is around 17%, She talked about having no access to very clean water in the market, no access to power even for charging her phone, no access to good sanitation and financial services, and capacity for her to grow her business. So as we think about that cluster of women who are in the end value chain, they constitute about 60 to 80% of the market vendors in our market. And we also do know that markets are very important for us. In Africa, we source 90% of our food from there. So what is it that the Rockefeller Foundation is doing around improving the food environment? And then especially given the COVID crisis where we are required to do the social distances and also improve our sanitation in the market. So the Rockefeller Foundation, one of the interventions that we are bringing on board is the idea of the smart market of the future. And what does the smart market of the future look like? We are imagining a market which is solar by power, and from the solar power, you can use it for lighting, you can use it for agro-processing, you can use it for cold storage. We're imagining a market where water is harvested, rainwater is harvested, and that water can be used to keep the market clean and keep our fruits and vegetables clean. We're looking at a market where there could be some bits of agro-processing, but for the fruits that they don't go bad before they are harvested, they are sold to the consumers. And we're also looking at a smart market that's also built in food safety, built in data. We have just come up from a session where we are talking about big data and also how we manage our organic waste and convert this into gold. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that there has been a group of women who are very critical to the value chain, but sometimes they get ignored, and there is not so much investment that have gone there. And we do know that the urban food markets, they offer the largest and the fastest growing commercial opportunity available in Africa. And there is an opportunity for
Excellent. Thank you, Betty. I like this smart market idea. I think it's, especially in talking of energy, it's definitely a sector that has been neglected. Vicki, let me just ask you, I mean, we started talking about, participation of women. We know that it's a systematic issue, not only a societal one. What do you think that we have to do to ensure that girls in particular have access to information, skills, tools, and other resources that will change their trajectory and their future participation in the sector and enable them to actually participate in these smart markets?
Yeah, well, first, let me give my hearty congratulations to Sahel Capital and for putting your 10-year spotlight on the goal of zero hunger. In the agriculture team of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Sahel Capital is an important partner for us, and we agree on the importance of the private sector to help drive the innovation and growth. Women's empowerment and the empowerment of girls is one of our top 4 priorities, along with productivity, income, and nutrition. And for the women in agriculture, we're focused on 2 key outcomes. First, we aim to increase rural women's incomes. And second, to increase their decision-making over the benefits of that income. Because, of course, to get to zero hunger, we have to unlock women's economic power. And we're focused on 3 levers of change: connecting women to market opportunities to help increase the income they receive, like Betty spoke about, collecting more and better gender data to ground our work in evidence and women's lived experiences, and supporting women to strengthen their own voices, skills, and knowledge through women's empowerment collectives like women's producer groups, women's self-help groups, and more. Since Betty talked about the last mile and smart innovations, I'll focus on the lever that we spend a lot of time on, and that's data and evidence. Much of our work at the foundation is driven by a desire to use the best information available to empower our partners. And we just sponsored the just released Series 2030 report, produced in partnership with Nature Research Journals. And this was based on an extensive review of evidence to identify what it would take to end hunger by 2030. And they asked the question, what do we know about what interventions work? And in their review, in thousands and thousands of articles, they found that only 10% considered gender differences in the outcomes of those agriculture interventions. 10%. That means 90% of the evidence out there on what works is gender blind. Now, this is unacceptable. That today, still today, it is not standard practice to collect sex and age disaggregated data in all agriculture programming and interventions, and to track whether or not women and men benefit and whether the intervention has done harm. This also hides the lives of girls that we're not collecting age information. In Nigeria, we have an investment with the World Bank's Gender Innovation Lab that's rigorously documented the gender gaps. And they show that the agriculture sector are 30% productivity gap between men and women. There's a 66% profit gap between women entrepreneurs and men entrepreneurs, and a 22% gap in wage employment. Women are not being paid the same as men. Now, these gaps are prevalent worldwide, including my country. But we know that if we could close the gender gaps, just taking Nigeria as an example, we could yield an additional gain of $9.3 billion, or 2.3% of annual GDP a year, or up to 22.9 billion, or 5.8% of GDP a year, if you factor in all the spillovers. So I want to say the good news is this, that the data makes it clear in really concrete terms that if we focused our agriculture policies, strategies, programs, and interventions on closing the gaps for women and girls, the entire economy would be lifted. Everyone would benefit, and we would get to zero hunger sooner. But here's the bad news. While the arc of history is bending towards greater equality worldwide, it's happening too slowly. Still today, no matter where in the world you're born, your life is going to be harder if you are born a girl. We know this. But do you realize that at the current rate of change, it will still be true for our granddaughters? Your granddaughters, my granddaughters, will still be living with these inequalities. And can we afford to wait another century before gender equality is a reality? So we've got to change direction. We've got to change our priorities. Otherwise, gender equality is going to take too long, or it might not even come at all. Just look at the reversals occurring today due to the COVID-19 pandemic, especially for girls. Girls being pulled out of school at unprecedented rates. And this is dramatically threatening their lives and livelihoods and their futures. Because this pandemic isn't just biological, it is social. It is exploiting the pre-existing conditions of our societies. It exploits the racism, the sexism, and the poverty and hunger in the same way that it exploits the pre-existing conditions of our bodies. So if we accept that changing gender norms, that gender norms are a barrier to reaching zero hunger, we've got to address them, to the barriers that keep women and girls from achieving their full potential. And therefore, we've got to empower millions and millions of the women and girls who are involved in our agriculture supply chains. And for this reason, our agriculture team has prioritized this. And I just want to speak very briefly to one example in Nigeria that we're implementing together with Sahel Capital, and that's the Nigerian Dairy Development Program. And this program is linking thousands of women, smallholder Fulani women, with the commercial dairy processing companies, and layering in a whole bunch of different activities to improve not only their livelihoods and productivity, but also their nutrition, and also women's ability to speak in public and to become leaders and to generate income for the whole family. And of course, this means coming to a much better understanding of the cultural beliefs and knowledge and attitudes and practices of Fulani households. And we're documenting whether or not these gains are being achieved by using a version of the Women's Empowerment in Agriculture Index. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I couldn't agree with you more. Just to give an example from what we're doing on the side of World Vision, especially during this COVID pandemic, many people do not know, because we think about World Vision as a humanitarian organization, but a lot of our work and what we have found is that our Savings for Transformation programs linking up to our subsidiary organization Vision Fund, particularly in West Africa, has been able to empower women, empower mothers. We have over 71,000 savings across West Africa with almost 1.7 million members, and 70% of them are female. And they have been able, to leverage the financing so that they can expand, into agribusiness and, expand the work that they're doing in the sector. And I think that that's something that we haven't talked about, but women's access to finance and even financial literacy and how to, access input is also very critical for us to, strengthen women's engagement, in the agricultural value chain. I'd like to find out, Elor, what are you doing in your work at IITA to help really, making sure that you are empowering women in meaningful ways?
Thank you very much, Carla. And I count it also a privilege to be on this platform to showcase some of the good work we have been doing. And I'm particularly grateful because what I'm doing currently, my core focus at IITA was actually being championed by Sahel, and I give thanks to Ndidi. This is a sector that was really very new. It was an emerging sector, the commercialization of cassava stems. It's always been there. We are always used to cassava stems being exchanged from farmers to farmers, but we had to look at the situation where we could turn it to a business. It was a very difficult one, but with the support of Ndidi and a team. And as a matter of fact, with also a young lady, Ramat. So these are women making this very significant change, even in a very new and emerging sector. So we're able to start off with the company, the ITA Go Seed, where we commercialize cassava seed. And with me being the lead, the truth was that I didn't realize that I could do so much. So, but with what I've done so far in a very short while, we've been able to show that part, that possibility of what is expected. As, of course, it came from a project, the Basics Project, which is being funded by the Gates Foundation. This is something that's been tried over years, but they've not really seen, it's not been successful. Let me put it there, it's been tried in different projects and all that, but it's not been successful until now. And I'm glad to say I'm a woman and I'm like at the forefront of this. So we're able to push and show the possibility of cassava stem business being profitable or, making sense as a business in Nigeria. So if I could do this, so we had to look because the cassava seed sector is kind of a male-dominated sector because of the nature of the crop. But thanks to technologies and innovations, I was at the technology sector at the first session. So we're talking about these as technology have come on board that have reduced drudgery and, so that physical aspect of, okay, this is a man's job and all that, it's been made simpler. Even there are some equipment, some machineries that women can actually easily operate now. And that is, the benefit of that. So really there is no excuse now. So we are in a position whereby not like I'm saying that the male counterpart are not also useful. I think we're doing is an all-inclusive system. Gender diversity is all inclusive, but what we're trying to say is that no gender should be suppressed. Now we're doing so much. We have a lot. And I can say that because of the passion. I mean, this is food security we are talking about. And I believe that the women are more passionate about that. You go to the market, you know, you make your, it's not a man's job, but, you know, the culture and the society where we find ourselves in that's made us even knowledgeable in these things. The man's aim when it goes into any agribusiness is just to make money. It's not a bad thing and all that. But then for the woman, I think she looks beyond. I want to make more impact. I want to do that. So by doing this, I'm able to, I think we had to we're trying to, you know, recruit some seed businesses, you know. So in order to do this, when we throw out advert like that, we have in fact about 90% coming in as male. So we had to consciously throw out an advert for only female seed producers. And in fact, I didn't know that people were going to turn up. Means that the interest is there. But sometimes we as female, we need something to really stimulate us, to encourage us. We need people up there to know that they are doing this. So I can do it. It's not like we don't know we can do it. We know we can do it, but we need some people to like be in front and showcase that, okay, I will take the same lead. So we threw out this advert and we had almost 200 people. I'm talking about Nigerian female cassava farmers who came on board and like they were interested and were ready to take the bull by its horn. That it's not going to be, if these are the benefit, why shouldn't I be part of it? So this is some of the things. So we're trying to encourage our female seed entrepreneurs in cassava and also in yams. We're looking at the yam. Though we just started first, we are using the cassava as a case study, but we hope to push it down to other crops. And we're seeing that people, the females, are actually responding very well. So we're going to be taking advantage of this and hope to get more, and whatever benefit is out there for them, we have to also tailor them towards such benefit so they can become more encouraged and motivated, you know, to compete with the male in a good way, an healthy way anyway.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you so much, Alora. I see Ndidi put something in the chat, and I think it's really important because we do a lot of it in our programs in terms of sensitizing and getting male champions. Do any of you have any, you know, Vicky, do you have any, you know, reflection on that? Because as you know, especially on this continent, you know, male-dominated, you know, societies that we, you know, live in, although women are engaged in the very actively in the value chain, what are some of the ways that we can develop more male champions?
That's a great question. Yeah, and we definitely, I think the evidence on that is clear too. Let me speak to one example that we just funded in Burundi. And we funded 3 different groups. One that was getting just the rice agronomics, one that was getting the rice agronomics plus what we call gender light, and it was focused on women only and women's livelihoods. And the third arm was what we call gender transformative, and this was the agronomics and the women's livelihoods and the engagement of the men. The engagement of the men to reduce gender-based violence and to be more allies for women's land ownership, livestock ownership, and so on. And we did, over a 4-year period, a cost benefit analysis. CARE was the implementing agency. And it's incredible. The returns on the gender transformative arm are 5 to 1 compared to the others. And, you know, it's a little bit more expensive up front, takes more skill. You know, this is one of the top constraints to doing this kind of deep, sensitive gender work, also bringing men along as allies, men and boys and community leaders. That takes a lot of skill. And that's where partnering with organizations like yours, like the others on this panel, together with the private sector, is really important, because the private sector companies that we work with and that we count on for scale and for profit and for widening the options for women to be linked to higher value opportunities, they often don't have those deep, sensitive gender skills, right? They don't have that experience. It hasn't been built in to the company traditionally. And so I find that the models that work best is when we partner the private sector company with organizations like yours, where we bring the skills in. And when we build for both men and women.
Excellent. And I think the community sensitization work that we do when we're working on the community level, has to be gender balanced, because we've seen in the past that when there have been projects or programs that are just focused on women and we don't deal with some of the sociocultural issues and do the sensitization and really get, males that are championing the women, supporting the women, that the projects and the programs are not as successful. And we see that in our World Vision communities across the board, especially because of the work that women do on the, the middle of the value chain in terms of and toward the end, in terms of the processing, as well as transformation, and then, the marketing. But we only have a few minutes left, and I just have one important question that I would like to ask, each of you to answer. And thank you so much, Betty, that you've rejoined us. I thought we may have lost you. What do you think, very briefly, just about 2 minutes, what is that one tangible action that needs to be taken to ensure zero hunger in relationship to women in agriculture?
Yeah, so I assume this is my question. So one of the things I can quickly say is that we know that adults have adopted healthier diets that are also contributing to the very high levels of non-communicable diseases. For example, in East Africa, 14% of the deaths are actually attributed to diets. And in most cases, women are the ones who make decisions in their families. We need to start educational programs empowering women to increase consumption of healthier diets. And here by diets, I'm looking at fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and whole grain and legumes, all which if consumed in the optimal quantities, they help to improve our health system. So my key takeaway is that women must be in the forefront of transforming our food system, and zero hunger must embed nutritious diets. And women have a big role to play. We know, for example, if a woman has a kitchen garden, she'll be able to provide her children, her family, with the fruits and vegetables that are required. So let's go back to the basics and also help women improve the diets that are coming to our tables. Thank you.
Thanks, Betty. I agree with you. Nutrition is key. We do a lot through the PB Hearth models of showing and educating women about, the nutritious foods they have right in the community and how, to, feed our children, nourishing food. And, that's part of our mandate is to, transform children's lives and making sure that they're healthy and, well, especially for the children that are our future. Eleanor, what would you say is the one thing that really needs to be done for us to tackle and, achieve zero hunger?
For me, there are several, but I'm going to speak of one that applies to what I'm doing, and we're looking at also food security. And food security is actually dependent on the access of seed, quality seed. And this is a sector where I believe the women, I'm saying it again, women should get more involved in. We have to find ourselves, we need to be able to channel distribution of good planting materials to make seed, to make food available in the future. So we need more women in this field. We need them to help distribute this good quality seed. So that is one out of the whole lot that I can say for now.
Let's see if there are any questions in the chat box. But I'm going to let Vicky speak as well. But let's see if there are any questions. Questions are welcome from the participants or anything. It would be great. I see a comment here that the Gates Foundation funded program, the award, did an outstanding job of engaging senior male agricultural research leaders as mentors for fellow women leaders. Excellent. And the question here is, how can more effective programs like this be funded and supported by foundations and corporations? That might be a good question for you, Vicki. What do you think?
Yeah, I know that one really well. And Karen, hi. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Award did a great job of engaging male allies and senior researchers to be part of mentoring African women scientists. And it is a very good model to learn from, and Award's being very well funded. It's being funded directly by Bill Gates through the Family Trust and by BNP, private sector partners, and so forth, and now with a focus on climate change. And I think that is a really important direction. And I was going to add that to add to the nutrition emphasis and the seed and input emphasis, I would just say another direction where we really need to put much more emphasis going forward is on women as entrepreneurs. More women than men in Africa are entrepreneurs. And that's often not recognized. And more women are moving off the farm into entrepreneurship at a faster rate than men are. So again, following the data, but their incomes are not improving. The profit gaps are large. Women are going from subsistence farming to subsistence enterprise. And so I think this is a real opportunity to focus on women's entrepreneurship, their skills, their access to financial services. And then if we could work with our private sector partners to prioritize women's SMEs, to prioritize women's producer groups in their supply chains, along with equitable pay, contracts in their own right, direct payment, and gender positive recruitment in their teams, and of course prevention of any violence and harassment. This would be game changing and build on where women seem to want to go and have to offer in their skills anyway.
Yeah, maybe I can say one or two things too, and it could be an. Okay, so I would want to use this opportunity to also crave the indulgence of Sahel and organizations like this to, bring in. There are so many NGOs and programs for little girls and all that. They've always been tailored towards the more professional jobs like medicine, lawyers, and all that. I wish they could integrate more of these agricultural programs in their programs, so we don't have to wait till these women are old and all that. We need to catch them young. I mean, there is nothing wrong with having a young female farmers club and all that. So this is something I think Sahel and some other organizations should think about. Not everyone is going to own an NGO, but you could work with some of these NGOs that already, take into cognizance young females, young girls, and all that. We have Raising Girls Ambition. We have lots of them. So I think they should integrate them more into some agricultural programs.
Talking about that, World Vision, as you know, we're an NGO, and we have several core project models of exactly what you're talking about. Not only our Savings for Transformation, which helps women access, credit and inputs, but we also have, our core project models, including building secure livelihoods, which we're looking at helping to increase productivity, especially promoting climate smart agriculture, financial literacy, financial management, all of trying to really build women's resilience. I'm happy that we mentioned about how we need to work on graduating women from subsistence. And we also are implementing the Ultra 4 graduation model. And to address other issues on, the environment, we also have our farmer managed natural regeneration, the FMNR project model, where we're implementing that in 12 countries, and we have over 4 million beneficiaries, most of them women, and we, World Vision, have invested about $18 million in this year. But something that we haven't talked about, which I think is really important, is women's access to water. And WASH is significant for us in World Vision. We've had over $1 billion investment in water and sanitation activities. And we found that without water, first of all, women don't have the time because they spend a lot of time looking for water. Second of all, they're using the water for nation and processing activities. So I think, like, as we talked about and comprehensive approach when we talk about empowering women. And so I don't know if there's any final words. I think we're up to our last minute. The only thing that we didn't talk about is agricultural policy. And Betty, are you all doing anything related to how we can better shape agricultural policy to be more inclusive of women?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we are doing at the Rockefeller Foundation, we are going to be working on increasing access to protective foods, as Raj mentioned today. And we are in partnership with IDRC and the Rockefeller Foundation, and we'll be looking to support research that is going to support decision making around the nutritious and protective foods in Africa. And we have already done the first call of proposals. We have received very, very exciting research topics, and some of them actually are going to focus on women. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Let me check if there's any other questions, because I see we have a little bit of time. Sorry, I had to improvise today on my...
Carla, can I say something about links to policy?
Yes, please.
I just want to mention an investment we've made, because this has been very difficult. Governments rarely invest in gender or rarely take bank loans for gender and so forth. So we in Ethiopia and in Nigeria, we've embedded a gender innovation lab that is embedded together with the government to document what the gender gaps are today. And then over these next 7 years to test the government's own policy and own programs rigorously with impact assessments, how well or not they are working for women's empowerment. And then that data is feeding into the government's development of its next policies. So this is a very big embedded approach, and we're doing this for the next 7 years. And then hopefully, if that works, we might do it in more countries.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, Vicki, is important. We need to advocate, for women's rights and women's right and access to land, and other productive resources.
And
we need to, yes. So the advocacy work, we're doing a lot of advocacy work. I mean, tied to many children's rights, but it's also tied to women and gender equality. And also, it's really important, especially on the policy side, that we really promote and advocate for sanctions against gender-based violence, because our women are really suffering, on the continent and on not only in conflict areas, but because, and we know already from the research that an outcome of the result of this COVID pandemic has been an increase, in gender-based violence. And so I will end there. I see Ndidi has joined us, and we would love to hear from you, Ndidi.
Hi, thank you so much, Carla, and thank you to everybody for a fantastic session. We decided to extend it for a little more. So I wanted to take over the moderation. Carla has been doing such a great job. And just ask all of you one personal question. So we need more Carlas, we need more Mercies, we need more Vickies, we need more Betty. What do you think has inspired your work and enabled you to achieve the impact you have as women? And for the men and women listening, how can we replicate your kind in the ecosystem? Because it's a lonely journey, and we need more of you. So that's from a personal perspective, what has been the game changer for you progressed in the journey as leaders in the agricultural landscape? So who wants to get started? Betsy, can we start
Yes,
with you?
you can start with me. So I must say that I'm in agriculture by choice. I grew up in a village where I saw many farmers suffering. It was, I come from a very dry region, which doesn't have a lot of rain. And so I felt a burden that when I grow up and I have a choice, I am at that point where I'm going to make a choice. I decided to actually pursue a degree in agricultural economics and agribusiness. And that really has helped me understand the challenges that the farmers go through. And I must also say that, I also got inspired by other people. And I think that's an important piece of work. And I also know that, for example, participating in agriculture in my school, we used to have those school gardens, and they were very, very influential. So I can say for me, it was a choice that I made, but it was those who are around me that really encouraged me to do what I'm doing. And I'm also excited to be working with an excellent foundation that gives me an opportunity to make a difference among the communities that we serve, and doing some very, very interesting work that is making a difference. So how do you get more of us? We need to really inspire the young generation. For example, a most recent study that was done by the Aga Khan University, it shows that 40% of young people, they actually want to become entrepreneurs. And the same study also shows that only 20% of the young people are actually interested in pursuing agriculture. Even in Rwanda, for example, it's only 5%. So we really have a lot of work to do. But I do believe, for example, we have emerging new technologies that are coming up, technologies that are cool to the farmers, especially the young farmers, the hydroponics, aquaponics, the vertical gardens, that are really becoming very, very attractive to the young generation. So yeah, let's just show the youth that there's money in agriculture, but it has to be done right. And I'm sure we are going to have more of the youth becoming, leaders in the agricultural sector.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you. Aloha, what about your experience, especially women in research?
Yeah. For me, yes, there's been agriculture was not by choice, to be honest. I just found myself in doing agriculture, but I was glad that I was able to realize on time that I could make the best of it and make impact also. So in research so far, I would say that I've been lucky actually to have good mentors, especially males. Funny enough, I've had very good male mentors. They've been very nice to me. They've been good to me, and they've helped me in my career development. So, and probably that, I don't know if I would say, made me look like, is this supposed to be a male thing and everything? But I'm glad that I came out of that shell. And one thing that really inspired me most was the position of leadership. Sometimes you don't know how much you can do. You don't know the potential until you are dumped with responsibilities and all that. And of course, Ndidi, you were also a very great inspiration to me, because this is like the early stage of my career. And when we started having this discussion with the ITA Go Seed, you came and I looked at you like, okay, this is Ndidi, and everyone looks at her with so much respect. And we, not just because they want to respect you, but because of the works you're doing. These were very obvious work, and I said, okay, then I think I could also work in the line. And I'm glad to say that I have some also young ladies that are also trying to be like what I'm doing. I just do what I can do, encourage and ensure that I keep up with the good examples and all that. So there's a lot of inspiration, but this is quite
so much, Mercy. The importance of male champions and male role models. The sponsor cannot be understated. But then you are becoming a sponsor and a role model and a mentor for young women. And I love that quote by Graça Michel, which says, every one of us, bring 5, bring 10. Do not rise alone. Do not rise alone. Pull up other women as you're rising. Okay, Vicky, what about you? What has been that trigger for you?
Well, mine's a very different story and a very crooked road. When I was a PhD student in New York City, in the middle of it, I won a congressional fellowship, which meant I went to Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and I worked for the United States Congress on the Congressional Caucus for Women's Issues. And this was back in the Reagan years. That's how old I am. And I was in the room when the United States leadership was making decisions about women's family planning options around the world and what U.S. aid was going to do and not do. And none of those women were in the room. And this was the moment I became radicalized about how can you be making decisions about women's lives in Africa, in Asia, and they're not in the room. So I left and I went to Rome and I worked for the Food and Agriculture Organization and for EFOD and worked in war zones for World Food Program. I spent the next 13 years in villages doing food security assessments, and I was doing PRAs, participatory rural appraisals. And every time I walked away going, if we paid more attention to the lives of women and girls, people would develop faster, get out of the disaster faster. And I just became more and more and more convinced that this was the one, if you had to choose one thing, there are many things, many levers, but I became more and more convinced that this gender lever was the most powerful lever of all and the most neglected. So that became my great passion.
I love it. And your passion is still shining through, Vicky. And people are chatting, saying, yes, Vicky, yes, Vicky. My friend from Washington, D.C., Nadine, shout out. She's saying, yes, Vicky. So, Vicky, we need women at the table. And I'm telling you, women, bring your own chairs. Make space at the table for yourself. Don't wait for anybody to make space for you. So that's a call to action.
Yeah,
Carla,
change the room.
Change the room, change the dynamics. Exactly.
Get in, bring your chair, change the room.
Yes, and just like I've been a role model to Mercy, Carla has been a role model to me. When we were starting Sahel, she took a bet on us. And her humility, her generosity. So Carla, what is your story?
Oh, well, I think back in the days when I was young and I was going to Haiti, I'm Haitian American, and then my first country that I worked in was Nigeria. But I did my master's thesis work in Ghana, and I looked at the impact of, what I talked about earlier, of providing water, providing inputs on women's agricultural and their productivity, and the transformative impact that it has on the family. I mean, when women are empowered, they can produce more food, process more food, sell more food, then the family is well nourished, the children go to school, the husbands are at peace. I mean, it's such a transformative, broad impact across the family, and the livelihoods and the well-being of the family. So to me, the food security of our continent and the world rests on women's activities across the value chain. So we need to empower more women. We need to provide the access to the inputs and to the credit. And because I've never seen a project in my 30 years in development that has targeted women that have not been successful. Women champions always arise. And that's what we need more. We need more women champions like all of us here. Thank you, Ndidi, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Carla. Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Aloha, and thank you, Vicky. You guys are champions, you're role models, you're mentors, and you open doors for other women. I can say that from my own personal experience. I thank you for your sacrifices. I thank you for your track record of impact, and I thank you for inspiring us today. Thank you for rising to the occasion and agreeing to serve on this panel. Everyone, please join me and thank this phenomenal panel. The key takeaways for me are the importance of policy, the importance of agency, the importance of financial inclusion and financial literacy, the importance of ecosystem access rallying together, the importance of male champions, and looking at every single aspect of the value chain and the development landscape. And I love the focus on wash. I love the focus on land. I love all the work you're doing and the focus on markets. So thanks to Rockefeller Foundation's pioneering work, we will replicate it in Nigeria. Roy already sent me some of the documents. So I'm very, very grateful for the insights you've shared and for your calls to action. And we will start to do more and propel more to close this gender gap by 2030. Now I'm going to formally end the session. Thank you all again.
Okay.
And invite
All right.
you all to go back
Thank
to the
you,
main
Dee.
stage.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you, Carla.